Hey, it's Naz from Naztronomy, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about Astroberry. Astroberry allows you to control your astronomy gear using a Raspberry Pi. It uses open source software, so it's free and flexible. If you're familiar with the ASI Air and N.I.N.A, Astroberry is very similar. And in this video I'm going to show you a very simple setup that you can use to take amazing photos of the sky using just a telescope, a computerized mount, a DSLR, and a Raspberry Pi running Astroberry. Of course, you'll need all of the wires that you need to connect your gear to the Pi, and I would also recommend getting either a high-capacity micro SD card or a USB flash drive so you can store your plate-solving files and any images that you take. So let's dive in and install Astroberry and take a look. Right, so I'm on my computer here and I am at astroberry.io. You can go here, read some documentation, and also download. If you click here, if you click on download, it'll scroll down to downloading Astroberry 204. So I've already done this before, so I won't have to do it again. So you can just click on it and download. It'll download an image.zip file. We'll then want to install it onto our Raspberry Pi, the micro SD card that we'll be using. To get it onto the micro SD card for your Pi, you can use any software you'd like. I like using the Raspberry Pi Imager. So once you have Astroberry on your computer, you have Raspberry Pi Imager open, what you want to do is click on Choose OS. You don't want to install any of the defaults, so what you want to do is you want to go to Use Custom, and you'd want to go find wherever you opened the image. I have the image file here, so I'll click on Image. When I'll click on Choose Storage, my 256 gig SD card is here, so 255.9. This, I'll click on Write. All existing data, yes. And this can take a little bit, so we'll come back to it once it has completed. Alright, so it looks like that's done. Just click on Continue, and it should be good. Now that we've put Astroberry onto our micro SD card, you want to stick the micro SD card into your Raspberry Pi and plug it in. I would highly recommend using Ethernet to connect to the Raspberry Pi. If you don't have Ethernet, it's fine. It's just for speed, because we want to run some updates on it as soon as we log in and download the files we need for plate solving later on. So we'll download it all onto our micro SD card. When you're out in the field, you don't have access to Wi-Fi. One thing the Raspberry Pi will do, one thing Astroberry will do, is it'll turn on a hotspot. It'll be called Astroberry, and the password will be Astroberry. It works pretty fast, so if you're out in the field, you might want to look into getting a small laptop. It doesn't have to be the best laptop. You connect to it using a browser, so you don't need anything special. Just a laptop that can connect to Wi-Fi. But at home, I'm lucky that I am in close range of Wi-Fi in my backyard, so once I have everything set up, I connect my Pi to the Wi-Fi, and I can come back down into my basement here and control it from my home office. Okay, so I plugged it in and I connected via Ethernet, so I can close this. And in another tab of your browser, you want to go to http astroberry.local. And once you're here, you want to click on Start. And one of the things I like about Astroberry is that it's all browser based. So you just log in, click on Connect. You can technically do this from your mobile browser as well, but it's a little bit difficult because it doesn't scale properly. So this is the first time you see this. You press OK. Password, we'll just Astroberry. It asks us some Raspberry Pi configuration. I'm not going to touch any of this. The only thing I can touch is make sure that my time zone is correct, because we want to make sure that when we're looking for stuff, it finds our stuff for us. So it'll be, where is it? United States, US. Then location, I'm just going to put Eastern time. Okay. And then you'll see that the time changed to 1812, so it is 6:13 p.m. Don't need to do anything else. So set Wi-Fi country. I'm going to set this because you need this for the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection. So otherwise it doesn't work. It needs that. So I'll just do OK. So this is the basic interface. It doesn't really fit my screen, so I'm just going to do full screen. So on the left side here, we're going to open our control panel here, and if you go to the telescope, it is the device manager. By default, it has a simulator, but we want to create a new profile. So I'll just call this one like 6SE DSLR, or yeah, sure, whatever. I'll do add profile, and it'll ask me to create, select some local driver. So I'll start typing. I'll do my Canon DSLR. I'll do AVX. I'll also want to do GPSD, which is a GPS daemon. It'll help us create a virtual GPS. I also want to do Sky Safari. I won't use this now, but eventually I will want to. And I think these are all the drivers that I'll need. I want to do click on auto start and auto connect so that if your Pi ever crashes or you need to restart, it reconnects. So we'll just start. There you go, now it's stopping, or it's starting. Okay, so if you're here, if you look at GPS, it thinks I'm in the middle of Warsaw in Poland, but I am not. And the way to update this is to edit the location.configuration file located in etc here. There you go. I've already edited this, but I will say one thing is that you can't edit this file. So if I make edits here and try to save it, it'll say permission denied. So the way to do this is to open up a terminal window, and then we'll do nano etc location.conf. And then here, if I change, I'm just going to change the elevation from 15 to 12. Whoops. Sorry, I gotta exit this. You want to do sudo nano, or sudo nano, and you put in your password of Astroberry, and now you can save it. So if I change this to from 15 to 12, do Control X, you press Y, it'll save, but make sure your latitude and longitude is correct. Y. File name, yes, enter. And now if I open the location and configuration file, you'll see that the elevation has changed. So that's the easy way to do this here. And then we'll notice that this hasn't changed, because if you read the documentation, you need to make sure that virtual GPS is up and running. I think I may have accidentally turned it off earlier. So if we do sudo system ctl status virtual GPS, it is dead. So what I want to do is I want to enable it. GPS. And what I want to do is I'm going to start it. Start. Status. So it is running. You can do sudo status GPSD. Sorry. Status. And if you'll notice, in real time, it actually shifted from Poland to Boston. So I'm in Arlington here, so it is around where I live. I didn't put my exact coordinates here, but you'll see that once virtual GPS started running, it switched me, which is pretty cool. And we'll need this when we are using Astroberry to find stuff for us. Now we can just exit out of this. Easy peasy. And if you go back to our device manager, we have our 4 drivers running. Great. Once all of that is set up, what you want to do is you want to open up terminal again, and you want to run a quick update. So we'll do sudo apt update, and sudo apt upgrade y. And once you do this, it will start. It'll ask for your password, and it'll start making sure that everything you have is up to date. It'll download the latest libraries, the latest dependencies, etc. While that's happening in the background, I'm going to open up KStars, which is our main piece of software that'll help us connect to our various devices and just do stuff for us. So it has built-in Ekos, and that's the software we'll be using. So once this starts up, you get a setup wizard here. I'm just going to do Arlington. Hey, look, Arlington, Massachusetts. Look at that. It's there. It's close enough. Let me make sure. Yeah, sure. Arlington, Massachusetts. It's close enough. So click on next. It says download extra data. You want to just KStars, blah, blah, blah. Use the catalog. Download extra data. Sure, why not? and we'll take a look at this. So it has like a Bell Sharpless, Tycho, NGC, Messier here. So you can download all of this and use KStars with it. But I'll skip this for now, and I'll click on Done. Give you tip of the day. So I'll expand this, maximize this. And this is just the home page of KStars, which we won't really be using. You'll want to click on this little observatory here. It's called Toggle Ekos. Before I go to that, I do want to make sure when you're out in the field and you're looking at this screen, you want to make sure that the time is correct. So the time here is 6:37 p.m. If you don't have Wi-Fi, it'll start counting the time from whenever the last time you turned this off. I've had trouble with this in the past where it was hours, not just hours, but days behind because it's been days since I turned it on. So the way to fix it would be to click on the little clock, change the new time, and then click on OK. But if you're connected to Wi-Fi, if you have internet, it'll update automatically. Otherwise, this is one thing to look out for. So I'm going to click on Start Ekos. So it'll want to set up a profile. So we'll do short Next. Equipment is attached to this device. Profile my Astro gear. I'll do 6SE, right, DSLR. I'll do T2I. Those are my two main ones. Eventually, I'll be using guiding, auto guiding at some point, so I'll switch to PhD2. But for now, I'm just using an internal guider. Do I want to add additional services? I'll add Sky Safari, even though I won't really use it now. That'll be in a future video. So it'll ask me to create a profile here. So it's 6SE T2I, great. I'm also going to put a 6.3 because I'm going to be using a 6.3 reducer with my setup tonight. And I'll create another one where the focal length is a little bit different. So we'll do the mount. You want to select whatever you have. So I have the Celestron AVX. For the camera, you'll do CCD, and you'll go to DSLR, and you'll do Canon. I'm not using any kind of guider, but if you do, you can go through the guiding, the focuser, filters if you're using them. If you have a dome connection, so it does connect to everything. So Sky Safari, there you go, it found it for me. And then I'll also turn on GPSD, and I think that's all for now, right? Yeah, those are all the auxiliaries. So the default, so this will help with plate solving later on. So I'm going to put in my telescope information, so 6SE. The driver, I don't need a driver, it's a SCT. The aperture is 150 millimeters, and the focal length with my 6.3 reducer is 945. 945. There we go. Click on Save. Okay. There we go. So my select telescope is going to be primary, and my guide scope, it's also going to be my Celestron 6SE because that's what I will be using. And everything else looks good. Click on Save. There you go. Ekos looks like this. I'll just do this. Okay, so now we want to start Ekos. So let's do Start. So for testing purposes, you just click on, yeah, so for testing purposes, I plug my AVX in and my Canon DSLR in. GPS detected. You want to switch time and location to GPS. No, that's the virtual GPS that I'm using. So my camera settings, so I have to get my T2I. So the pixel pitch is 4.29. Oops, 29 by 4.29. The sensor resolution is 5196 by 3464. It's pretty big. So that's what it is. So if you Google whatever camera you have, you'll be able to do this. So click on Save. For testing purposes, I plugged in my AVX and my DSLR. I don't have a telescope on there yet, and it is working and it's connected. It's not polar aligned, so it's not going to do anything. But we can look through some of these options. You can look through them as well. I'm not going to change anything at all here, really. Including site management, this should all autofill. On my Canon DSLR side, it is connected. So one thing I will recommend that you do is you go to image settings, You want to make sure it's raw, and you want to make sure the capture target is SD card. So this is for the camera itself. So if you have an SD card in your camera, you click on SD card, it'll also save a copy to your SD card as well as wherever you set Astroberry to save to. The reason is if you don't select SD card, it'll save to just memory and then it'll disappear. So if for some reason, if anything ever happens to your Astroberry while you're imaging, you have a backup. And I like doing this just in case, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Look at some of the other options, and there's really nothing else that we really need to do here. Great. We can also look at GPSD. This is just the virtual GPS that we're running. You'll notice that the longitude says 288, which doesn't exist. It's because it can't handle negative longitude for some reason, so I'm at negative 71, but it adds 71 to whatever the longitude is. But yeah, so if you see this, it's not wrong. It's just weird. You can also just close this. You don't have to minimize it. You can close it. You can always go back here and then click on this, and the N.I.N.A control panel pops up. Now a couple more tabs opened up, so you can work with scheduler. I haven't really practiced with this yet, but I will try this at some point because you can automate more of it. It has some timeline information here. We won't be using any guiding, so it won't be too useful for us now. We have our CCD or camera tab here. It has your camera information here. There's no cooler, so things you can't use are not here. One thing that I do recommend is when you're saving to directory, I already have my USB drive plugged in, so it'll be in media. It's an Astroberry. This is what the drive is called. It's kind of an ugly name. And then since tonight is whatever the date is, so I'm just going to do, I won't put the date name. I think I'm going to take pictures of N.I.N.A, so I think that's what I will point it at. And I'll click choose, and you'll see that it will now save to here. I would also recommend doing like duration. It's just easier to read the file, and the target will actually get automatically filled later on. We have the focuser. I'm not using any kind of electronic focuser. I don't have any plans to do that anytime soon, so this will probably not be useful for me anytime soon. And then we have the mount control panel. So it has the aperture and the focal length here based on what you inputted earlier, as well as the guide scope. So if you click on mount control, you'll get a little joystick type thing here. I can move my mount. So it is moving to the W, so I think it's doing 5 times. If I move it to 9, I don't know if you can hear it through my microphone, but it is turning it, very fast, and it is turning on both axes. One thing you can do here is click on the magnifying glass and target, and you have a list of so many things. So if I do M108, click on double click this, so it knows exactly where it is, and click on go to, and you'll see that it's slewing. And again, I don't know if you can hear the whirring of the motor behind me, but it is whirring. It is slewing. It's probably not the best idea since I don't have a telescope on it. So I stopped it, just so I don't overwork the motor with nothing on it. And then if you go back to the camera tab, you'll see that the prefix M108 was automatically filled. It's because it knows that that's what you're looking for. That's what you probably will be imaging. The last tab we're going to look at here is the guide, the align tab. So we'll test this out in real time when I'm outside, and we actually have a camera out there that's looking through my scope. For now, I'll just leave it for now. And then we'll come back to it. This is the guiding. So again, I won't be using this tonight in this video and the next one, but eventually I'll be using guiding as well. So come back, subscribe, and come back, and we'll go over that together. So the one thing when you're in the align tab, if you go into the options here, you'll have a couple more like stellar solver options here. And this is what we'll be using to download our plate solving information. So if you go to the index files option here, you'll have a list of all of these checkboxes that you can click to actually download the index files for that part of the sky. So you have 1400, blah blah blah. By default, it saves it into like one of these locations, and share here. And like I said, you can actually also add another location. So if you click on this plus folder, you can actually add a location onto your USB flash drive, which I have done in the past. I won't do it here because I do have a 256 gig SD card now, so I feel comfortable putting everything here. You'll notice that there are 3 types of files you can download: the required, recommended, and optional. So you want to make sure you get the required files first. All sources. Yeah, it's when you click on all sources, the things don't light up. So I'll just click on user share Astroberry. No. And then now you can see the color. So I'll just click on the checkboxes. And you'll see just how fast it's downloading, and that's the reason I like doing this over Ethernet, because it just makes things so much faster. Okay, so everything is downloaded. It took a little bit longer than I expected because this one file here is 13.6 gigabytes. But anyways, this is good. I'm just gonna press OK. Everything is connected. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this up outside. It's almost, it's actually is a couple minutes past sunset, so I'm gonna set up. I'm going to polar align my scope, and I'm gonna connect this and try and connect it to Wi-Fi. Okay, so I'm out in my backyard and I have my mount and telescope polar aligned. Once I have it focused, I'm going to go back inside, connect to the Astroberry, and point it towards M108. So on this side you can see that on the hand controller, shouldn't be leaving it hanging there, I have the RS-232 cable going from the hand controller and this mini USB or micro USB mini USB from my DSLR going to this little box here that's housing my Raspberry Pi running Astroberry, and it is close-ish to my house, so I can get access to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection. So I can go home, go inside, and then connect to it and see what happens. And of course, most of this is connected to the Jackery box here. Just to show you some live workings of this thing. So I pointed it towards Arcturus. You can see it on the guide panel here. I'm going to point it, go back to the mount control here, so I have it open here. I'm going to switch it to M108. Just gonna go to M108, press OK. Only double click works, and then on the screen I'm just going to click go to. And you can see my mount turning. It's very high in the sky. Let's hope the camera doesn't touch something. I'll probably do a meridian flip pretty soon. Probably should have started on some other thing, but anyways, it stopped. So now it's tracking, and now if I go back to my Align tab and I do capture and solve, it'll take a 10-second shot. If I look back at the screen, it'll say a check mark saying it is centered. So let's get back inside and we'll look at the screen from an actual computer. So back on the computer screen, you can see very clearly what's happening. If I click on this little I button, it'll actually label what's in the center of the screen. You can see it's M108. Which is pretty cool. If I go back, so I can actually close this this mount controller. Now if I go back to the CCD tab, so I have to change the directory because the Astro USB no longer exists. So I'll go to, it doesn't exist. So I'll go back to this media, Astroberry, this weird thingy. And then I'll do M108, sure. Exposures I want to take, I usually take 90-second exposures. And for LED, I just set 1,000. I'll never get to 1,000, but this is so it doesn't run out. and I'll click on the little plus button here to add it to the queue. You don't have to do this, you can just click on play and it'll take what it has, and then I'll start. And now it's taking 1090 second exposures, and what it will do is, so I'll close this, just want to make sure, SD card, yep. So I'm doing it at ISO 1600, which it's usually what I use. And then if I go to that directory, media, Astroberry, M108, so it'll show up. So you can see it created a light directory. So once you do darks and flats and whatever, it'll do that too. So I actually meant to take not fits but native. So once it does the 90-second exposure, I'm going to cancel it and I'm going to restart it with the raw. It's just easier for me to process later on. So it finished one, so I'm just going to stop it. Make sure it doesn't take any more. If I go back to my directory here, you'll see it has a fits file here. If I click on it, Astroberry does come with a fits viewer. There you go. So the green is, I think it's pretty normal on the fits viewer. That's why I like taking raw. So I'm just going to redo this. I'll move this, do native, start it, and then we'll take a 90-second exposure of that. So after my imaging session was done, I copied all of my files over to my computer in this directory, and you can see I have two folders, darks and lights. So I took a bunch of darks, it's prefixed with another object that I imaged later, and the lights directory has the two objects that I imaged. And here you can see I took about 83 shots. The first one was a fits file, so I'm not going to use it. The first three here were washed out because the ISO was wrong, but files from here to here are pretty good, and you can see it gets darker. It's because the Galaxy moved behind my house. So I processed all of this in AstroPixel processor. Let's take a look at M108 and a couple of other galaxies that I caught using this exact same setup, DSLR telescope, no guiding, pretty simple. And do subscribe, come back. I will go over guiding as well as a few other tips and tricks with Astroberry. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I'm going to continue to use it, and I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. So like, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Clear skies.